Hey, it's Nikachu, and in today's video we're gonna take a look at the most ridiculous Magic the Gathering game I've ever witnessed. Today's match is the very last one to finish in a 1,500 player tournament. Now this game's gonna look pretty bad, so I have to front load this video with a disclaimer. Neither of these players are cheating. You see, Magic the Gathering is a very complicated game with a lot of moving pieces. It's hard to keep track of all of that, even for experienced players. Sure, sometimes sloppy play is cheating, but usually it's just sloppy play. But don't worry, because there's two table judges staring down this match, because they're waiting for this round to finish. And they're gonna make sure that the rules are being followed. So let's just enjoy this game for the abomination that it is, alright? Let's take a look at the action. So the player on the left is playing blue-white control, and in play they have Teferi, Time Raveler. This 3-mana planeswalker is one of the most powerful because of the static ability. Each opponent can cast spells only any time they could cast a sorcery. And that's going to be important because the opponent is playing Living End, a combo deck that cycles tons of creatures into the graveyard and then plays a cascade spell, like Violent Outburst, to cascade into the namesake card, that effectively swaps all the creatures in the graveyard with all creatures in play. But the problem for the Living End player is that cascading into a spell is technically playing it at instant speed. And so the Teferi says, not so fast. I'm playing Magic, you're playing Hearthstone. So Living End can't combo off. They have to get rid of that Teferi. Oh, the old pass the turn. Oh wait, I got something to do. Okay, now I'm really passing the turn. Not the cleanest play at a competitive event, but you know what? Who wouldn't allow it? After some contemplation, our Living End player tries to flash in a Subtlety, a 4-mana 3/3 flyer. But there's only one problem. There's a Teferi in play. That means you can only play spells on your turn. The control player pointing at Teferi must be like, don't make me tap the sign. So basically the judge issues a yellow card to the combo player. They take their move back and away they go. And at this point, I think there's now 3 judges watching the match, 1,000 players waiting for the game to end, so no pressure at all. So our combo player plays Grief for free by exiling a black card from their hand. And when it enters the battlefield, target opponent reveals their hand. You choose a non-land card from it, and that player discards that card. So he looks at the control player's hand and, it's not good. You didn't want to see any of these cards. He takes the Shark Typhoon because whatever, but he knows he's screwed to these 3 other cards. We almost forgot that Grief didn't pay mana to be there. It needs to be sacked into the graveyard. Only paying customers can use the bathroom around here. So the Living End player replays the quintessential spell of this video, Subtlety. It's an evoke creature, which means you can exile a blue card to play it for free. However, the cost is that when it enters the battlefield, you must immediately sacrifice it. But not before you get its ability. When Subtlety enters the battlefield, choose up to one target creature spell or planeswalker spell. Its owner puts it on the top or bottom of their library. Now, a spell is a card that you have just cast. It's on the stack. A permanent is a card that is already in play. Just to give some context about this card, in this tournament, it's brand new. It came out just a few months ago. This is the first time people can play with and against a Subtlety in a big tournament. And our Living End player tries to bounce the Teferi that's already in play. That's illegal! Now, there's another card in Magic the Gathering that is so similar to Subtlety, and it's called Submerge. Put target creature that's in play on top of its owner's library. I personally play with Subtlety, and the biggest mistake all my opponents make is they assume it's a card like Submerge. But Submerge attacks cards in play. Subtlety attacks cards that are being cast. So our Living End player has not read their card correctly and is making a play that will do nothing. Or technically it should do nothing. So how will our blue-white control player respond? A, let the Subtlety do nothing. Or B, let it put the Teferi back on top of his library. Lock in your final answers and let's see what happened. Apparently there was a third option, completely unforeseen. Play Archmage's Charm to counter the Subtlety. Oh my god, the Subtlety wasn't gonna do anything! Just let it resolve and go to the graveyard. I actually live for moments like this in tournament Magic. I play Subtlety. Resolves. Target your Teferi. That's illegal. And then I watch for that moment in my opponent's face when they realize what they've done. And I thought the control player read Subtlety, obviously not the whole way through. So now we've got two players that think Subtlety acts like Submerge, and they're gonna play it like that for the rest of the game. And it's not even clear to me that that counter spell was legal. When the Living End player targets the Teferi, does that imply that the Subtlety already resolved? You can't counterspell a card that's already in play. But the Subtlety gets countered, so who am I to say where the hell that thing was on the stack? I would like to remind you all that there are 3 judges watching this game. They're watching this abomination play out, and they're like, this is fine. You would think that they would point out some of these plays are illegal. So they must know something that we don't. Let's keep watching to find out. So our combo player plops down a Curator of Mysteries, a 4/4 flyer that can threaten that Teferi Time Raveler. But we already know the control player has Solitude, which when it enters the battlefield exiles a creature. But the Living End player has no choice but to just play cards and hopefully exhaust all the control player's removal. So Living End plays Foundation Breaker, a pretty sad play at this point of the game. and he gets bounced by the -3 ability from Teferi Time Raveler, which also lets the control player draw a card. And then they slam down Teferi, Hero of Dominaria. Prepare for trouble and make it double. They use the +1 to draw another card, and also be able to untap 2 lands at end of turn. And with Solitude attacking in for 3 damage, our combo player is losing control of this control matchup.
One eternity later.
We're getting close to the end for this Living End saga. The control player attacks for 6 with their 2 Solitudes. There's 2 Teferis on the board, and then he activates the companion ability to put Kihira from his sideboard into his hand, which when played is gonna buff up the Solitudes. What's the Living End player gonna do? If at first you don't succeed, try again. The Living End player tries to play another subtlety, again targeting the Teferi. And how shall the control player respond?
No! God, please, no!
They countered it again! If anything, I guess it's a complete show of dominance. Like, what a flex that is. I'm so far ahead of this game that I can waste counter spells on something that's not even threatening me. And after subtlety is countered, the Living End player scoops it up. Now back to the judges. Why didn't any of them intervene at any of these seemingly illegal plays? I had to ask my judge friends for an explanation, and their answer was, technically, nothing illegal happened. The Living End player played subtlety, pitching a blue card. Certainly not illegal. Now he pointed to a Teferi, but it's still on the stack. He can point to a land, he can point at me, it doesn't matter. The opponent counters the subtlety, perfectly legal. And if subtlety went to the graveyard, then it had to have been on the stack to be countered. So cards got played, they went to the graveyard, the Teferi's still there on the battlefield. From the judge's perspective, everything's fine. But as we could all see, that whole game was a mess. And other judges might rule differently. And even speaking for myself, I'll make one stupid game rule violation per tournament. So if you want to stay on your sharpest game, make sure you sleep well the night before. Also make sure you're eating throughout the tournament. If your blood sugar's too low, you won't remember what the hell's going on in the game. And if you're playing with a new deck or new cards, make sure you read exactly what your cards do. What's the most rule-bending game you've ever spectated from the sidelines? Let us all know in the comment section below. Smash like for spectator mode, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel, or Subtlety's gonna start bouncing your Teferis.